So queen takes b2, rook to b1, queen a3, and I have d4. And because this bishop's undefended, he might think, oh, I can take on e4. But I play rook b3 first, kicking the queen out, and then I capture the knight. I'm probably going to even continue with g4, knight g3, g5. Oh boy, h4, h5.
He sacrificed the knight!
Whoa, that's a nice move, actually. But it doesn't work. And here's why it doesn't work. So right now what he's threatening is knight takes c4. And there's one really nice deflection idea here. I have c5. The reason c5 works is it attacks the queen, and I'm still attacking the knight at the same time. I like the standard English opening, g3. I go for the Botvinnik setup. The idea of e4, d3, knight g2. Okay, so here, because he plays c6, the idea is to control d5. So we want to put more control over d5, so he can't play it just yet. He should probably follow up with castles. I'll play knight g e2, followed by castles and d3. And then I'll play h3, f4, f5. That's the long-term idea. Usually in the Botvinnik system, black tries to get his knight around through e8, knight c7, knight e6. And usually he already has a knight on c6, and the idea is to occupy the d4 square because there's a hole on d4. Queen to a4 doesn't work because of knight to b6, queen takes a7, rook to a8 traps the queen. So we definitely cannot play queen to a4. Here I'm thinking a4 with the idea of controlling b5. That seems like a good idea for me because usually in this Botvinnik system, black tries to get counterplay on the queen side while white plays on the king side. I like a4 here. Even if he plays a6, I'll probably just play h3, bishop e3, and then f4. Because I always have to watch out for queen b6. Any like checks on this diagonal combined with the attack on the b2 pawn can be a bit of a problem for me. So I have to watch out for that. I can always play king h1 as well, but I have to develop this bishop anyways, and I want to go to e3. I don't want to play bishop e3 here because he instantly has knight g4, so I want to play h3 before I play bishop e3. Interesting, a5. I think this is an inaccuracy because the idea for him is to play b5, and now there's no pawn on a6 to support b5, so it's going to be extremely hard for him to break through the queen side. Now that we see this, what we have created are two holes on d4 and b4. But let's think about it. How can his knights get into d4 or b4? I don't see this knight ever coming into b4 like for a long time. It can come to c4 or c5, maybe reroute this way and then go into d4, but this is going to take a while for him. So because now black has sort of locked up the queen side, we have to push on the king side and take advantage of the fact that black has delayed his attack on the queen side. I really want to play bishop e3 at the same time, but it falls into knight to g4, so I'm going to play h3 to stop knight g4. Now play bishop e3, or I can even just go for f4 as well. F4, if queen b6, I simply have king h2, and then I'm going to continue with f5. Or I could have the idea of bishop e3 first with the idea of queen d2, maybe possibly even getting rid of this bishop, which actually is pretty good. It does a lot of stuff on that diagonal. Okay, knight to c5. I don't really see what his knight is really doing besides putting extra pressure here. Maybe he's trying to relocate this way. That seems like a feasible option for him. He seems to want to relocate to knight to a6 with the idea of knight to b4. Look once again, if his knight is on b4, is it really a big of a deal at the moment? No, he has two more moves to get to b4, and all he does is put the attack on that d3 pawn, and there's really nothing here to actually, it's not really useful. It's not in a really useful square. And one thing I see is that since he's playing knight to c5, it blocks the diagonal of his queen from making any possible checks for the next move. So I have the ability to play f4 here. And now I still want to play f5 because I want to play g4, knight to g3, g5, completely obliterating the king side. That's the long-term plan. So if he plays queen b6 here, I always have bishop e3. That's even worse for him because I'm on the diagonal of the queen. He could take on b2. It's quite risky though. I have rook b1, and he probably doesn't want to stay on a3 because that's quite hideous position for him if he gets into that situation. So I'm willing to give up this pawn if I have to, and I could even have his queen trapped eventually if he tries to take my b2 pawn or anything like that. But what I expect him to do here is probably He's gonna have to start defending here. Actually, he's gonna have to maybe play e6, something quite tedious. Because knight here is terrible because I have f5 kicking the knight with tempo and also breaking in through the king side, which is fantastic for me. I've also prevented knight to g4, so I can start playing bishop e3 now, which is great. Develop my last undeveloped piece. I also have d4. I didn't consider that at the moment. D4 looks very good, strong as well. A 4-pawn storm would be really nice. I think d4 would have been a better option in this position. Okay, so he plays queen to b6. Okay, we have two options. We have d4, but he might play knight to b3, which is a little bit annoying. So here I'm thinking bishop to e3 like I talked about earlier. The idea is after queen takes b2, we have rook to b1, queen to a3, and then I have d4 kicking the knight out with rook b3, the idea of trapping the queen, which looks very, very dangerous for him. Bishop here. If he plays queen here, I'm not even sure if I want to take on c5 because that might open the file for his rook to put lots of pressure on this weak pawn I have on d3. I go here and he plays queen to b3. I had the idea of queen d2 like I initially had, trying to remove the bishop on g7 because it actually does quite a bit on this diagonal once he moves the knight. So bishop b3, queen takes b2. Then I have rook to b1, queen a3, and then I have d4. And if he has knight takes with the idea of taking the bishop, I have rook to b3. Before, like, after knight takes e4, I have rook to b3, kicking the queen out, and then I take the knight. So then I still win. I think we play bishop e3 here. It's a really long calculation, I see. The idea is queen takes b2, rook to b1, queen a3, and I have d4. And because this bishop's undefended, he might think, oh, I can take on e4. But I play rook b3 first, kicking the queen out, and then I capture the knight. Because it has two defenders on the e4 square. I've also stopped this knight from moving anywhere because it's pinned, so that's really nice. So this is quite a burden for black, this pin. And I actually never intend on taking this c5, well, at least for the moment, because I don't want to, even though his pawn structure is a bit messed up, it opens this d file, and that's something I don't want to do. You have to see in these positions, you don't want to open the d file because this is a backward pawn at the moment. I could push on d4, d5, but that takes a little bit of time. We will have to see. But usually when you have like a backward pawn, it's quite weak. It's one of your weaker pawns because it can't be defended by these pawns because these pawns have already moved on c4 and e4. And opening the d file allows for possible counterplay for black, especially like rook d8 attacking the d3 pawn. Maybe he could load more pieces onto it later on, but just something to look out for. Now we also should think when we're playing chess in your opponent's perspective. Okay, if I was black here, what would I play? And just think about it that way. So we should analyze what's the best. What do we think is the best move here for black? Oh, and queen takes b2. I find even quicker win. Rook b1, queen a3, and then bishop c1 just wins on the spot because the queen is just dead trapped. Okay, knight f2 d7. I kind of like his idea. What he's trying to do is open the diagonal for this bishop and put some possible threats on the diagonal. And he's also like saying, oh, if you ever take here, I'll take with my knight, and I'm perfectly good. So now I'm actually considering d4. d4 is something I want to consider. Because d4, let's assume I play d4. Say he goes knight b3. I think I just have rook a3 and he's losing the piece. Yeah, he would just lose the piece if he did that. So that's not feasible. My next course of action is if d4, say he might relocate to knight a6 because I can't play d5 yet because this is undefended. I'm going to follow with queen d2, protecting this even, and then play f5 and then bishop h6, trying to get rid of this powerful g7 bishop. That's something I definitely want to do. And I cannot play queen d2 right now because I just fall into this fork. That is quite annoying because even after bishop takes, knight takes, my bishop is hanging and my rook's under attack, so I'll be losing. So d4, kicking out the defender of the attacker of the b3 square is nice. Well, let's see where could black go if I play d4. Knight to a6 is probably knight to a6 or knight to e6 are the two only options for him. I like d4 here. Remember, he can't. Black cannot play knight to b3 because I have rook to a3 that traps the knight. So his only options are pretty much knight to a6 and knight to e6. I'd say knight to a6 is better because if he goes to e6, oh boy, I have like f5 coming in. Probably queen d2 even first. It depends what works. I think f5 just wins on the spot because after knight retreats, then I play queen d2, so I get the tempo first. Knight to a6 is I'm like 95% sure he's gonna play knight to a6. But I think I just follow with queen d2 protecting the bishop. And then, or I could even just launch with f5 to be honest, because I don't think he can even take, yeah, so knight to a6. If I play f5, queen takes b2, rook to b1, and then queen a3, and then bishop c1 still traps the queen, and that's winning. So, I really like the idea of f5. Let's see if we have anything better, though. I don't want to play d5 for a while, because that opens the possibility for this knight to get back into c5, if not his second knight even, which could be actually quite a problem. I don't want him to play f5 and get counterplay. I think we go with this. I'm probably going to even continue with g4, knight g3, g5, oh boy, h4, h5. Whoa, that's a nice move, actually. But it doesn't work. And here's why it doesn't work. Because if I play d takes e5, obviously the idea is to take on e3 with check. And it also, I'll lose a pawn. So right now what he's threatening is knight takes c4. And there's one really nice deflection idea here. I have c5. The reason c5 works is it attacks the queen, and I'm still attacking the knight at the same time. Say you go here, takes the thing, I just win the knight, and I'm winning. And if he takes with the pawn, obviously I take this way, and I'm also winning the piece. And he has to move the queen, or he's lost. And so this is why knight to e5 works. It looks super cool, but you got to be more careful when you play, because you need to see, can white make this my plan not work? And this is exactly how I make it not work, by playing c5. Okay, expected that. Pawn takes knight, bishop takes knight, then what do we do? Let's think about it. We get bishop f4, possibly. Maybe not bishop f4, because he has c4 with check, and I don't really want that. After takes, he'll also have knight to b4, but we have to take, because that's the whole point of the c5. So bishop takes. He's threatening rook d8 as well. Let's see. A knight here would be really nice. But we don't have that kind of time to reroute right now. We have to try to trade some pieces down so we can get into a winning endgame. First of all, queen c1 looks nice here because it protects the pawn that's on b2, just in case black can ever capture on b2. It also moves away from the eye of the rook if black ever plans to play rook to d8. And I also have the idea of bishop h6 in case he tries to retreat. And this looks like a pretty solid move to me. I can then play rook to d1 so I don't lose that pawn. Knight b4, okay. We take first. Takes, and then I have rook d1 as well. Like rook d1 here. It does cramp my position a bit, but I'm going to open it up a little bit after like bishop h6, queen e3. That's the idea. I like knight to f4 though. Knight to f4 looks fine. Bishop b3, I have rook d2, and I think I'm fine. I don't see anything crazy after that. Just have rook d2, right? I don't know, I just see rook a3. I think it's fine. I don't have much time. Queen f2. I always have king h2. My king is never in trouble right now. And this bishop is still under attack. I'm not gonna play bishop here. I have bishop takes here as well. So I'm threatening two things right now. And he can't play c4 to defend the b3 bishop because of his queen, obviously. And I don't want my... I always have to be careful of this, so I'll have to see here. Right there. So he did hang this, but he's also attacking my rook. But it's fine because this is completely winning now because after this. He can't take because of this, and he has to move the queen out the way, and I take on b3. And I'm winning. Obviously that doesn't work because I just have bishop takes here, and then I take back with the bishop. Take with the bishop or the king? Oh yeah, I gotta take with the king. Oh, but he has... He has rook d2 check. Still winning though, I just have to play it correctly. I have to be careful so I'm not like hanging any pieces. He has bishop here. Might be able to trap his rook. Imagine I'm able to trap his rook. I guess that's the only move. I have this and this with idea of rook here, and then knight here. And what if I take the pawn? Take with the pawn, just to have him like stuck in here. We just push the pawn. Always have knight here. I stopped the king from coming in. So I think we just use the help of our bishop here to push the pawn. If he tries to play here, I just play here. Slowly we're using all our pieces to our advantage here and sort of suffocating our opponent. We're going to be moving step by step where each of our pieces will guard. So I keep pushing. If he goes, so if I push right now, let's see. Oh, he just hung a rook. Never mind.